So today we have, what's going to pretty much be a neutral spine class. Not that we always need to be in a neutral spine with scoliosis, but that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And it's going to have a lot to do with the strength of the backside of our body, our glutes and our hamstrings and the muscles along our back. So we're going to start today in our chair shavasana. You can have padding for your concavities handy, have a yoga strap handy, and head support if you think you need it. So you can make do with a dining room chair if you don't have a folding chair at home. We're going to start sitting really close to the chair, slide down onto our thigh, and then roll onto the back. And then from here, we're just going to let our feet land for a moment and do a little check-in. So you can check to see if your head is tipped back. If it is, you can bring a little head support in under your head. And then you can check to see how your concavities and your curve are touching the floor. So as we're first starting our practice here today, we're going to pad our concavities. And as we do that, we're not trying to build the concavities up even higher. We're just kind of giving the curve a little hug. So you can place a little padding, little washcloths in, and then tune in and make sure that doesn't feel too high. So we're not trying to lift our concavity up. We're just kind of trying to even out the ground so there's a little less pressure on the curve. And then once you've gotten that far and you feel well supported, you might even need some support under your shoulders or under the whole low back. Then you can go ahead and bring your legs up onto your chair seat. And if you're using more of a dining room chair, your legs might not fit quite the same way as mine currently are, but that's okay. You can let there be an angle to our thighs here, so the knees don't have to be stacked right above the hips. And then our last little measure here, we'll put our strap around our thighs. And this isn't meant to glue the thighs together. It's just going to limit how far the legs can fall away from each other. So you can still have a little space between your knees. And then we'll let our legs land and be supported again. So they can't fall open at this point with the strap there. We'll take a moment, get comfortable. Close your eyes if that feels okay. And then tune in with your breath and just start to notice how your breath is arriving here today. Get a feel for the pace and the depth, any textures or temperatures present in your breath. And for these first few moments, just use your breath as a way of helping yourself land here. Letting go of whatever else has happened already today. And then see if you can gently invite your breath to grow a little bigger. And if it's helpful, you might even let your hands rest on your rib cage for a moment and feel the movement of the ribs as you breathe. Maybe notice that the ribs expand on the breath in. And then if we're breathing naturally, the ribs kind of condense back together here on the breath out. Let's take a few nice big breaths that way. And then we're going to drop our attention into our curve pattern. So the side of our body that is a concavity tends to be a little bit more compressed. So we're going to use our breath to help create a little openness in the concavities. So the next time you breathe in, going to breathe a little more over to the concave side. And you can keep your hands on your ribs if that's helpful, or let them find a comfortable spot again. I'm going to breathe into your concavity, breathing it out to the side and down towards the floor. And then release, soften as you exhale. And then again, we'll breathe into the concavity, breathing it out to the side and down towards the floor. And release. And then we're going to add to this. We're going to breathe in the same way. Fill the concavity, breathe it out to the side, down towards the floor. As you exhale, imagine that exhale can come from your curve. You're going to breathe the curve towards the midline and then up towards the ceiling. Breathing in, concavity out to the side, down towards the floor. Breathing out, curve drawing towards the midline and up and away from the floor. Give let it go a few more times here. And then go ahead and allow that way of breathing to fade away. Let your breath find its own natural pace again. And then take a moment to scan through your body and notice sensations. There might be areas of your body that draw your attention right away, and there might not be. And if your body feels a little calm and quiet here today, just notice that. And then let's have one more breath here. When you're ready, you're going to bring your legs closer in towards you so you can take your strap off. Keep your strap close by. And then we're going to roll to the side and come up just long enough to move the chair. And then we're going to find our way to our backs again. So you can draw one arm overhead, roll towards that side. Use your arms for support. Come on up. Good. And then scoot your chair out of the way. Good. And then once your chair is out of the way, you can find your way back down again. And if you sort of lost your padding, you can rearrange. All right. And then we're going to grab for our strap again. We're going to take our strap around the sole of the right foot and then stretch that leg towards the sky. Yep. And there's no fancy way to go about it. If you like to use a loop, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. All right, so we're gonna do a check-in here. If you have really tight hamstrings, you might need to find a little knee bend or maybe even a big knee bend. Check in with your low back and make sure that as you brought your leg up, you did not round your back down towards the ground. So keep the low back neutral, a little bit of space there. Natural lumbar curve. And then if you feel okay here, you might stretch your left leg out long. We'll take a few moments, settle in, soften your shoulders. And then let's hold both ends of our strap in our left hand. We're going to take our right arm up towards the sky and then grab a towards the floor behind us, any amount here. So you're reaching the right hand back. Yep, reaching the left foot forward. We're going to revisit this shape here in a few different ways today. Good. And then let's go ahead and bring our right hand back down by our side. And we're going to swap over to our other leg. So let's go ahead and bend the left knee just as we transition. You can take your strap off your right leg and let that foot land. And we'll bring our strap around the left foot and then stretch the leg up. Same check-ins here. So it's quite common that our two legs aren't the same. One might be a little tighter than the other. So if you need that knee bend here on this side, go ahead and have it. Check in, make sure your low back isn't rounding down towards the floor. You can always let your foot come closer towards the ground if you need to. And then if you're comfortable here, you could stretch the right leg out long. And then we'll take a moment just to kind of tune in. Have a few big breaths. And then we're going to hold our strap with just the right hand, and we'll take our left arm towards the sky and back behind us in the amount. So if your thumb is able to touch down to the ground, great. If it's not possible, that's okay. Just keep it up. Keep the shoulder happy. Keep reaching. And then we'll bring our arm back down by the side. Bend the right knee, plant the foot to the ground. We'll take our strap away, bend the left knee and plant the foot to the ground. We're gonna have 2 feet down, both of our knees pointing up towards the sky. Arms can just be by your sides here for a moment. I'm gonna come through a few bridge poses, and we're gonna use this not as an exercise to bring mobility into our spine, but as an exercise to bring some strength into our glutes and our hamstrings. So we're going to think about our spine moving as just one solid segment. We're going to press our feet down into the ground, squeeze the bum, lift the hips towards the sky. Try to find a straight line from your shoulder to your hip to your knee, and then lower down again. And we'll come in and out of that. So you can find your own pace here, lifting and lowering a few times. In traditional yoga, bridge pose is a back bend, but we're keeping it neutral here. You might also think about reaching your knees towards the wall in front of you, as if you could lengthen yourself out a little more, both as you lift and you lower. And then the next time that you lift up, if it feels okay, go ahead and pause there for a moment. We're gonna let our arms be right next to the sides of our body, and then bend your elbows so your fingers point towards the sky. We're gonna press our elbows down and press our shoulders back, not to lift through the chest higher, not to come into a back bend, but just to get that back body engagement. So a little more engagement through the back side of your torso here. You might feel the muscles between your shoulder blades working a little more. Keep squeezing the glutes. Good. And then we're going to gently release down. Hands land. Hips land. And then we'll find our way to hands and knees. So again, one arm can come up. And roll to that side. Use your arms for support. And come on upright. All right. So as we find our way to hands and knees here, let's go ahead and grab our yoga strap again. We're going to put our strap either right around the low ribs, just sort of straight across, or you could off-center your strap to be in your concavities. So for my curve, this happens to work out just fine that it is in a concavity. If you have, say, a right thoracic, left lumbar curve, your strap might end up looking a little bit more like this. Okay. And we're going to spend a moment and think about breathing into those concave spaces. So if your strap is off-centered, this might be a little trickier. If your strap is straight across, it might be a little easier. We're going to see if we can let our hands land again here, back into that tabletop shape. So if you have your strap off-centered, your hands might also need to be a little bit off-centered for a moment. And the strap doesn't have to be crazy tight here on you. It can just be tight enough that it gives you a little feedback. So all we're going to do for the next moment is focus on our breath. I'm going to see if you can feel your ribs pressing into the strap as you breathe. Or if you have one half of the strap in the thoracic and one half in the lumbar, see if you can feel your flesh pressing into the strap. And we'll think about breathing a little more into those concave spaces again. And now that we've flipped ourselves over here in orientation to the floor, when we breathe into a concavity, we're breathing it out to the side and up towards the ceiling. And then when we exhale, we're breathing the curve towards the midline and down towards the floor. One more breath here. And then you can go ahead and set your strap aside again. I'm going to stay in this tabletop shape though. We're going to come into our puppy pose next for a little elongation. So from this hands and knees shape, you're going to sit your hips back towards your heels a little bit. You're going to pay attention to what the low back is doing. So at some point, your low back is going to want to round. We're going to stop before then, keep our hips up in the air, and then walk the hands forward. See if you can tune in and figure out if you're in a straight line from hands to shoulders to hips. And if you feel like you're rounding your back towards the sky, see if bringing some blocks under your hands is helpful. And we'll spend a few breaths thinking about elongating. So reach the sit bones back, reach the head forward. Imagine creating a little bit more space for each of your spinal discs. As we elongate the spine, we're kind of stretching out the curves and the concavities, getting them a little closer back towards neutral. And one more big breath here. And then we're going to come back up to our tabletop. All right, so we're going to test the waters here. We're going to take our right leg back, and hopefully our foot's going to land at the wall. So just see if you're close enough or too close. Wiggle yourself closer or further away. So we want to have our foot going to land at the wall with the leg straight. And then you can gaze back there for a moment and make sure your toes are pointing straight down. Good. And then also check in with your low back. So if your foot comes up really high, you might feel a little compressed in the lumbar spine. So err on the side of the foot being low, so the low back can stay nice and long. Good. Find your balance, find your strength. And then if you're up for a little extra challenge, we're going to take our left arm forward along the ear. So balancing table, but we have some of the balance taken out of it by that added stability of the foot at the wall. And then bring your hand down. Bring your knee down. We're gonna swap sides. We'll take our left leg back, plant the foot at the wall, look back, make sure the toes are turned down. So if your toes are turned out, there's a chance that your hip is also rolled up towards the sky. So keeping the toes turned down most likely means our pelvis is also centered. Check in with the low back, make sure the foot isn't lifted too high. Find your balance, find some core strength. And then we'll let the right arm reach forward along the ear. If you're up for that, you could keep both hands down. Excellent. And then go ahead and let your hand land. And let your knee land. All right, we're going to come over to the other leg here again, and we're going to basically turn sideways. So step by step here, and I'm going to end up turning away from you for a moment. So let's take our right leg back, let it find the wall, and then we're going to take the lower half of our left leg, spin it out to the side as you turn your body sideways. So we're going to let our right foot still be at the wall, and then the left arm can reach right up towards the sky for a moment. And then once we're here, check in with your curve pattern again. So if your arm is connected to a thoracic curve, you could bring your arm down. If it's connected to a thoracic concavity, you could reach your arm out past your ear. And then if you have a curve anywhere in your spine that's facing the ground, we're gonna think about lifting the curve up away from the floor. Elongate through the spine. One more breath. And then we're gonna try to spin our way back down here, moving the shoulders and the hips together. Back to your tabletop. We'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll take the left foot back, plant it at the wall so you have that support, and then spin the bottom half of your right leg back behind you. Open the chest, open the shoulders, open the hip. Good, and then once you're here, tune in with your curve pattern. So if your top arm is connected to a curve, you can bring your hand down. If your top arm is connected to a thoracic concavity or thoracolumbar concavity, you can bring it out past your ear. And then we'll tune in any curve at all, anywhere in your spine. You're going to think about lifting it up from the ground. Fantastic. We're going to spin our way back down here again. All right, excellent. We're going to find our way all the way up to stand. So get there however it's easiest to get there. And then we'll find our way into a mountain pose for a moment. So feet in under your hips. Maybe lift and spread your toes. Find strong legs. Imagine you can pull your kneecaps up so your quads are engaged. Squeeze your glutes, let your arms dangle for a moment. Try to get a feel of where your pelvis is in relation to your rib cage. So if you know your pelvis shifts to one side, try to bring it back to neutral. Lengthen through the crown of the head. And then let's bring our arms up overhead for a moment. Give a nice big reach there. Breathe and lengthen. And then go ahead and release your arms down. Yep. Arms can move out to the side so they can move forward and down. We're going to find our way into a warrior one. So we're going to let our right foot start forward. We're going to step back with our left foot. Try to keep those left toes pointing straight forward so the pelvis can be nice and square forward. We'll bend our right knee. And then we'll take our arms back up overhead for a moment. So as you get here, if your low back feels a little compressed, you're welcome to bend your back knee a little bit and really think about lengthening the tailbone down to keep length through the lumbar spine. Pause for another breath. And then we're going to bring our hands down by our hips. Keep the legs the same. Angle your upper body forward. See if you can play connect the dots here. Back heel to your knee, to your hip, to your shoulders, to the top of your head. Try to make a nice long straight line there. And then if you want an extra challenge, we can sweep the right arm forward along the ear. So we're back to having that cross body action, opposite arm and opposite leg. And then go ahead and release down. You can stack your body upright, step your back foot forward, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. And I'll face this direction this time. So left foot's gonna stay forward, right foot stepping back this time. Back toes facing forward. Front knee is bent. Check in with the low back. If it feels compressed, you can bend the back knee a little, lengthen the tailbone down. And then we'll draw our arms up for a moment. Find length through the spine. Thinking about each of your curves drawing towards the midline and de-rotating. So curve side coming forward, concave side coming back. Good. And then we're gonna keep our legs here, let our hands come by the hips, angle the upper body forward. Get yourself nice and steady and strong. Yep, play your mental connect the dots. Back heel to the knee, to the hip, to the shoulder, to the head. And then if you want, left arm is gonna sweep forward along the ear. And then be careful as you reach an arm overhead. If you have a curve, try not to kind of go into your curve pattern. So keep both sides of your torso equal length. And then hand back down by the hip. We'll stack ourselves upright. Step the back foot forward. Okay, we're gonna turn to face our wall next. So we're gonna place our hands about waist height. We're gonna come into our upside down L and find a little more length through our body again. So hands about waist height. If you have tight shoulders, they could go higher. They could also go wider apart if you have tight shoulders. And then we're gonna walk our feet back and stack our hips right above our ankles. That can be hard to figure out sometimes, so do your best. If the hamstrings are tight, you could bend your knees. We're gonna think about really pushing into the wall and reaching your bum back to the other side of the room. And then be careful that the armpits aren't dropping down. And be careful the back is not rounding up. So try to think about making a nice sort of flat tabletop through your upper body here. Have one more breath here. And then when we come out, we're gonna lift the head, lift the chest. Try not to round the back and walk your way forward. All right, we're gonna flip ourselves around again. And we're gonna bring our chair back onto the mat. And we're gonna end up with one foot back on the wall again. So this might take a little bit of fidgeting around to find the just right distance between the wall and your chair. And then you have an option if your chair feels too low to bring some blocks onto your chair seat. So I take that option. So we're gonna start off close to our chair. We're gonna hinge from our hips and bring our hands down. And then we'll start by taking our right leg back. So ideally, we're gonna land where we can have our leg be straight again and our foot be on the wall. So if you need to scoot your chair, go ahead and scoot your chair. All right, big press back into your foot. And again, make sure it doesn't come up super high so the low back feels compressed. Push back, reach the crown of the head forward. Find some strength and stability here through the torso. Think about elongating the spine, drawing curves towards the midline, breathing your concavities out to the side and up towards the sky. Exhaling curves towards the midline and down towards the floor. And then if you want an added challenge for just a breath or two, see if you can take your left arm forward along the ear again. Fantastic. Check in, notice your curves. Notice if bringing the arm forward made you go into your curve further. And that was more than a breath or two. So go ahead and come on down. We'll let our foot land. I'm gonna swap right over to the other side. So shift your weight to your right foot, take the left foot back, plant it at the wall, check in, make sure the toes are pointing down, make sure the pelvis is squared down towards the ground. Make sure the low back doesn't feel compressed. You can take your foot lower if you need to. Reach the head forward. Once again, tune into your curve, come as close to neutral as you can. Settle in with your breath. And then if you want that added challenge, we'll take the right arm forward. Again, as you take an arm forward, be careful that it's not making you come into your curve pattern. So keep concavities long and keep the curve drawn towards the midline. And then we'll bring our hand down. And we will bring our foot down. So let's walk our hands over to our thighs for a moment and come on up to stand. Take a breath. We're going to do our standing, what is this called? Half moon, standing half moon next. So basically the same thing we did on our knees, but in a standing version. So this is a little bit trickier. So we're going to come back down and I will be turning away from you again for a moment. Going to hinge from our hips again. And we're going to think about bringing our supporting hand more to the middle of our chair. So I'm going to be standing on my left leg first. So I'm going to bring my left foot towards the middle of my mat, left hand towards the middle of my chair. I'm going to take my right leg back, plant it at the wall, and then I'm going to try to spin my whole body here again. So chest and pelvis rolling open together, toes at the wall turning out. The wall can help you with some stability and support here. And then again, we'll think about lifting whatever curve is facing the ground, lift it up from the floor. If your upper arm is connected to a concavity, you could reach it out past your ear. If it's connected to a curve, you could reach it down by the side. I know this is a super tricky one. And then let's go ahead and gently try to move the shoulders and the pelvis at the same time. Spin your way back down to your chair. We'll let our foot land. And then opposite side. So right hand, right foot can come more towards the midline of your chair and your mat. Left leg's gonna come back. We'll try to spin the shoulders, the chest, the pelvis all together here. Spin your back toes out. Good, and then once you've got there, tune into your curve pattern. Whatever curve is facing the ground, you're gonna draw it up and away. And then if your top arm is connected to a thoracic curve, you can bring the arm down. If it's connected to a thoracic concavity, you can reach the arm out past the ear. Excellent. And then let's go ahead and gently spin our way down. Try not to twist through your back. Let your foot come on down. All right, walk your hands to your thighs. Come on up to stand for a moment. Fantastic. We're going to inch our chair a little further away from the wall. So we're going to repeat this without the support of the wall this time. At least we're going to repeat the warrior 3 part. Make sure that as you scoot your chair forward, if you're on a hard surface like a wood floor, you've got at least 2 legs of your chair on your mat, so you don't just slip slide away. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bend forward from our hips again. Both hands down this time. We'll shift our weight to our left foot, take our right leg back. This time the foot's not going to land, so you should have enough space that you can just reach back. So we're taking away a point of stability, adding a little challenge. You have to really tune into the backside of your body here. So really squeeze the right glute, reach back through your heel, reach your head forward. Check in with your spine. Keep concavities long. Keep curves drawn towards the midline. Excellent. And then let's go ahead and plant that foot down. I'm going to swap right over to our other side here. So shift the weight to the right leg. Take your left leg straight back. Tune in with the low back, tune in with your pelvis. So it might be a little harder to tell if the pelvis is neutral when you don't have your foot at the wall. So we're going to try not to tip the pelvis up. Keep the pelvis neutral. Keep reaching back through the heel. Really squeeze the left glute. Reach the head forward. So we're always trying to elongate in our poses. Draw curves towards the midline. Keep concavities long. And then go ahead and let your foot land. We'll come up for a tiny moment here again. Hands to thighs. Come on up. Good. Take a breath. All right. We're going to give our half moon a try here without the support of the wall. So let's go ahead and hinge forward again. We're going to bring our left hand and our left foot more towards the middle of our mat. And take our right leg back and up. And then see, without the support of the wall, if you can open the chest and the hips together. Tricky one. If you've managed to get here, tune in with your curve pattern. You can adjust your top arm if you have time to do it. And then we'll go ahead and come right back out again. Ooh, maybe wobble out. Yep, some wobbling out there. That's okay, I wobbled out too. All right, we're gonna take our right hand to the middle of the mat, right foot to the middle of the mat. Lengthen the left leg back. Try to spin the chest and the pelvis all at once. You might find you have an easier side and a harder side. Good, and then once you get here, maybe adjust that top arm. So straight up is always an option. Out past the ear to open a concavity in the thoracic. Down by the hip to knit a curve in the thoracic. Excellent. And then we'll go ahead and find our way back out again. Maybe you wobble out, maybe you come out with control. Whew. All right, hands over to hips or hands over to thighs. Come on up for a moment. Let's breathe our arms up overhead. Elongate here for a tiny moment. We're going to do one more version of our warrior 3. We won't do any more versions of our half moon. So elongate, reach the head up, reach the fingers up. Big breath. And then let's go ahead and just bring the hands down. I'm going to see if we can take away another point of stability here. So we're going to hinge from our hips again. Start with hands down. Shift the weight to your left leg. take your right leg back. So same thing so far, getting nice and steady and strong there. And then you can test the waters. Maybe one hand can lift from your block. Maybe both hands can lift, maybe for just a tiny moment, maybe for a little bit longer. If you're lifting, make sure that didn't change what's happening in your back. And then we'll again find support through the hands. Let your foot land. And we'll swap to the other side. Weight on the right leg, left leg comes back. Connect to that length and strength for your body. So active glute, reach the heel back, crown of the head forward. Maybe just one hand comes away from the blocks. Maybe two hands can come away for a tiny second or for a little bit longer. Check in with your back again. And then we'll replace our hands back down. Let our foot land. Walk the hands to the thighs. Come all the way up. Whew, all right. Let's find our mountain pose again, Tadasana. Feet in under the hips. We'll draw our arms up once again. Elongate the spine, reach the fingers nice and high. Imagine you could lift your rib cage up off of your pelvis as you reach. Good, one more big breath. And then you can let your hands find their way down. Good, we're gonna get our chair out of the way. We're done with our chair for the day. So you can get as far out of the way as you would like. And then we're gonna find our way onto our backs. We're gonna do just a little bit of front body core strength, and then a little bit of stretching of our hips and our glutes, and then our rest. So go ahead and come on down, however it's easiest for you to get there. You can have your padding handy. As you're setting yourself up, make sure you have enough space that you can reach an arm back and a leg forward. Blocks can be set aside as well. And then we have options here as we come onto our back in terms of padding. So you might pad your concavities again. That is a nice way if you have been in any kind of pain or want more of a gentle practice, you can go with that. If you want to try nudging yourself a little further to de-rotating your spine, you can use no padding whatsoever. And if you want to de-rotate the most and your back feels good, you can bring some padding in under your curved side. So I'm going to go with that for this little last bit here. You make the choice that feels best for your body, though. All right. Well, take a moment here. You can let both of your knees be bent just to start. Let your hands rest on your belly. Take a big breath. Notice how the belly moves as you're breathing. And then we're going to see if we can brace our core without smushing your back down to the ground. So we're not going to try to round the low back down. Keep the back neutral. Keep some space under your lumbar spine. But brace the core so that you feel the muscles here engaged in the front of your belly. And then we're going to see if we can hold this brace as we continue to breathe. So we're still taking full breaths, but the shape change of that breath is going to happen a little higher up in the chest. And then let's stretch the right leg out on the ground. We're going to keep this core engagement here, keep our head down. All we're going to do is lift our right leg from the floor a little bit. And then go ahead and lower. Let's switch our legs around. So right knee is going to bend, left leg is going to straighten out. If you let go of your core brace, go ahead and brace again. Make sure the spine is still neutral. And then we'll lift our left leg a tiny bit. So everything else still staying neutral, nothing happening to change the shape of your spine. And then let's go ahead and lower down. Let's switch our legs around one more time, and I'll give you the option of making this round through a little harder if you want to. Embrace our core. Gonna lift the right leg a little bit. And then if you want, take your left hand back behind you and hover your hand above the ground a little bit. Excellent. Tune in now that you've made that arm adjustment. Make sure the spine hasn't curved deeper into your curve pattern. And then we'll release down. And then we're gonna swap ourselves around to the other side. So we'll bend the right knee, lengthen the left leg out. Brace the core first. Lift the leg. Yep, arm can come up and back if you want to. You don't have to. We're gonna keep that arm lifted from the ground here. So getting some extra work in. And then release down. And then you can come on back to two hands by your sides and both of the knees bent again. Take a nice big breath, release your brace through your torso. And then let's go ahead and pick our right leg up off the ground. We're gonna cross our ankle over the other knee. Like we're making the shape of a triangle with our legs. You're gonna use the muscles of your hip to reach that right knee further away from your shoulder so it's not close in towards you. Now kind of get it away from your shoulder as much as you can. And then if you want to, you can pick your left foot up off the ground. Check in with your pelvis here. Notice if your whole pelvis kind of rolled over to one side. See if you can keep your pelvis centered and neutral. And if this feels like too much for your core to be holding the legs up, you can always loop your hands around the back of your thigh. And then let's go ahead and gently release. We'll let both of our feet find the ground again. Take a breath. And then we'll swap to the other side. So left ankle crossing the right thigh. Gonna work the left knee away from our shoulder using the muscles of our hip to do that. And then maybe lift the right foot up off the ground. And then you can use your core to hold the legs here, or you can loop your hands around the back of your thigh if you want to have a little more support. And then let's go ahead and let both feet land. Step your feet a tiny bit wider apart, maybe outer edges of your mat, and then allow the knees to turn and rest in on each other. Good. And then take a few big breaths, close the eyes maybe. Just do a little scan through your body, a little check-in here. We're gonna take a moment before we transition to our relaxation. So if you're feeling complete, you can find your way into your relaxation pose. If there's one last stretch or yoga pose you want to come into, you're welcome to take a moment for that. We're in no hurry. If you are feeling complete and ready for relaxation, you can pick any position that feels comfortable. So you might decide to bring your chair back in under the lower legs like you started in, our chair shavasana. You might decide to drop the knees away from each other, bring the soles of the feet together, and maybe use support under the thighs. Or you might decide on more of a traditional savasana where the legs are stretched out. And maybe you decide to bring something under the knees. That can often be nice for the low back. So take your time, adjust your props and support. Find a position that does feel really well supported for your body. So if whatever position you've chosen doesn't feel comfortable, change it up. Use any of the tools you have around you to support your body. And then go ahead and find a soft gaze or close the eyes. See if you can allow a softness to settle into your breath. So you can forget about curves and concavities for the next few moments. Just allow the breath to move naturally and freely. Allow the breath to show up however it wants. No right or wrong. No better or best. And then begin to soften all the muscles of your body. Let your head be fully supported by the earth or any supports beneath you. And with the weight of the head supported, see if you can release and soften through your neck and your shoulders. Allow the arms to rest wherever they're happy. Let a softness settle into your entire torso. So many muscles work all day long here to hold you upright, to stabilize your curves. Just give them a moment to release. Let the ground support you instead. Allow the legs to be fully supported. And then see if you can allow the same sense of ease and softness to settle into your mind. And if thoughts find their way in, let them leave just as easily. Let them pass on by. And allow yourself to have a moment here with nowhere to go, nothing to do. And then gently bring your awareness back to your breath. Use your breath this time of bringing your attention back to the here and now. Invite a little movement back in. Maybe wiggle your fingers or your toes. Maybe turn your head side to side. And then as your attention settles back in, you might roll to one side for a few breaths, or you might give yourself a nice big whole body reach, arms back, legs forward. And then gently let your eyes blink open again. Come back into the here and now, back into your surroundings. And when taking your time, you can find your way upright. No rush to get there. Namaste.